these students, Andrea? There's 6 students I went to Arizona last fall, and it was kind of random. I just threw the idea out because we only had room for 5 or 6, and 6 students in 2 different classes decided to go, and we didn't know each other. We met at the airport at 5 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, it turned out to be this amazing chemistry, and the students are still close friends, and I feel close to them as well. So they're going to just share the experience that they had. And so yeah, so Rebecca, do you want to say a word?
Okay, so thank you everyone for being here tonight. My name is Rebecca Zuniga. I'm the director of the Denver Justice and Peace Committee. We are a grassroots organization that focuses on education and advocacy for human rights, environmental and economic justice in Latin America, and we do this through nonviolent activism and through solidarity work. As part of that work, we got involved with this School of the Americas Watch that has for over 26 years have been doing a visual at Fort Benning, where the School of the America is based. Now it's called the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security, or WINSEC. So they changed their name, but they continue training military personnel from Latin American countries. And a lot of those people that have been trained at WINSEC have a history of human rights abuses. So one of the things that we are trying to do through the solidarity movement is to close the School of the Americas. Dictatorships like Pinochet, Rios Montt in Guatemala, Pinochet in Chile, have those military personnel have been trained at the school, and they're all these violations have been documented in different ways. So every year there's a vigil, and this year, last year, in 2016, the group decided to take action in a different way and decided to do a convergence at the border. Where people could participate on both sides of the border in Arizona and Nogales. So there were activities happening in the Mexican side and activities happening, demonstrations happening as well in the US side. And this was the first time that it was done that way. And I was very excited to bring the idea to Jim, and he was like, yeah, let's see how many students will join us. And this amazing group of students that you're going to listen to tonight, I think they learned a lot from this experience, going to the border and experiencing the militarization of the border and what that does to the communities, the border communities, is something that they saw it firsthand. And the idea to have this tonight was to share that. There's a lot of issues going on around immigration and militarization, so this is one way that you can become active in the community and do solidarity work for to change what is happening in not only here in the US, but how it affects our communities of color in other countries. So with that, I am just going to open the floor to you. Thank you.
Hi, so my name is Ashton Harder. I'm a political science major here at CU Denver. I was one of the 6 students who had the opportunity to go to Nogales, Arizona. It was really an opportunity and an experience that I didn't expect it was going to be like. I don't think any of us really expected anything going into it, but originally when we first got to Arizona, we got to Phoenix. We got to Phoenix, and then we went to a church where 3 men from Central and South America had taken sanctuary for, what was the, 2 or 3 years was the longest that somebody had been there. So that's 2 or 3 years being in one church, and granted, this was a very large campus for a church. They had a beautiful view, they had great services, a great community, but sadly sometimes people are confined to smaller spaces and harder restrictions. So it's interesting seeing it from the inside and getting to talk to them one-on-one, because they were very, very excited to talk to people from outside of the community and tell their stories and be able to show how it is so that they could communicate outside of their community base what was really going on and how this really affects the daily lives. And they're not criminals, they're just people who want to work and contribute to our society in any way that they can and raise their family. One father was trying to, what would you phrase it? He was trying to get what through his daughter, who was 22.
He was trying to arrange his papers.
Yeah, he was trying to arrange his papers to get citizenship through his daughter, who was 22, and he'd been trying for about 3 years now. And it's just really sad seeing somebody who's so willing to and desperate to dedicate his life to our community, and our country is so easily willing to deport someone like this. But from Phoenix, we went to Nogales at the border, where we first went to, we did the march first, was it?
I think we went to...
Or was it the detention center the night before? We did the vigil? We did the vigil at the detention center, night prior to the actual Convergence, where we stood outside of a detention center that housed, I cannot remember the number of individuals, but it was really one of the most remarkable sights and one of the most emotional feelings that I think all of us had felt during this trip, because we're standing around this compound in the middle of a desert with just how many people were, and 1,000 people were around in the vigil with candles, singing, screaming, praying. It was very emotional. And then to look out in the complex, you see men throwing their sheets over their windows to signal that they were seeing, that they could see us, that they could hear us, that they knew we were there and that we were there for them. And it was just very emotional to see that connection. And many of the people in the vigil had family members that had come out of that detention center as well. So it was a very emotional experience for some of these people. But the next day we went to the march in Nogales that took us straight down a very busy road and right into the border. Half of us went one way and half of us went the other way, not our class, but half of the marchers. And that itself was an extreme show of what civil disobedience can do. And when you actually, I'm from Texas and I've never seen the border in 22 years until this experience. And when people say it looks like a scar on the earth, I could never visualize that, but you see this giant metal fence in the middle of this beautiful sprawling landscape that has mountains and a wonderful, robust community immediately stripped apart by one metal wall. And people who had lived here for generations are stepping out their front door to walk down the street to go say hi to a neighbor with a fence 6 feet from their front door. And that was just a really interesting sight. Do we have more slides to this?
It's slideshow.
Hit slideshow? Okay. Yeah, I'm just glad we have photos, just because it's this is the visual. It was very emotional. That's one thing I really should I should stress is I don't think any of us expected to have such an emotional connection with this. And I might be able to. Can I go back?
Yeah.
Sweet. So it's a beautiful, beautiful landscape, and just imagine what could be there if this wall wasn't. Just imagine what we could be doing with our community and with our country had we not been so fearful. I think it's something that a lot of people should think about, even if we're thousands of miles from the border, if we're 1,000 miles, 20 miles away from the border. It's something we should all think about. And then in terms of being able to be active, we were very fortunate to be able to go on this trip, but a lot of people are not. And a lot of people question, what can you do with what can you do within your community to help something like this? The Denver Peace and Justice Committee is a great way to help. El Centro Humanitario here in Denver is another really just a great resource for the community itself here in Denver if you want to be able to be active. But the most important thing to take away from any of this is say something. Like, make sure you have a voice as well. And if you're helping somebody stand up, make sure we know what we're in for, because we thought we were ready and we were not. But it was hands down one of the most incredible experiences I will have in college. So if anybody helps,
Yes, I think.
anything bad, thank you.
Okay, so my name is Frida Silva. I am a first year student here at CU Denver. I'm also a political science major with a minor in communication. And I think what Ashton was saying about taking action, we kind of promised ourselves, this is kind of what we're doing now. We heard so many stories from many different individuals, from the men within the church's sanction. We heard so many stories, and with those stories, it would be wrong of us not to go into a setting like this and tell their stories. It's something so important, because if we just keep it to ourselves, then we're not really teaching everyone what is truly going on. So I'm really glad that everybody could come out today. I know we're pretty busy end of the semester, but this is really crucial that these stories and these voices come through us to you guys. So, okay, where do I start? So, kind of like what Walsh said, we really didn't know each other at the beginning of the semester. I'm a first year student in college. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to do it. And there was like an instant connection with all of us, and we're just hitting it off, and that really made the trip that much greater, and it was definitely fun, and we all got to learn, and we were very active and really engaged in the material that we were kind of getting ourselves into. So first day, the vigil, which was pretty intense as well. We drove quite far off to Nogales into the desert, and I'm kind of going to go a little bit into depth with some of the stories that we heard. So there was families there who were talking about, their experience in Eloy Detention Center, which is, the big complex, and so there was people released from the detention center telling their stories, and there was family members telling the stories of their family members in the sanctuary. So 2 stories that I heard that I remember. There was a woman who had lost a child, lost a child within the detention center, and afterwards she felt very ill, and she got no treatment, no medicine afterwards. All they kept giving her was water. Just drink water, just drink water. She did not get the attention that she needed. And there was another man who, he got like something with the prostate. It was like, I don't know if I want to go into much detail, but he got really sick, and from that, and again, no medicine was supplied, nothing. He was not taken care of until it was too late, where he then had to go through emergency. So people in the detention center are getting abused and not getting the attention they need if they're sick or they have disease. So it just shows injustices that goes on there. God, I'm trying to remember. There's another story, I think.
Can I jump in real fast?
Yeah,
there was
definitely.
one, when you started talking about stories, there was the one that immediately struck to me that I made sure I wanted to talk about, because this was a promise that we did make, was to make sure that the stories that we heard were being told outside of this 100-mile border zone, because as many people don't know, is Border Patrol has jurisdiction within 100 miles from the U.S. border in any which way, which is a very large distance. And so there was actually a woman, we went to a workshop in Nogales the day of the march, immediately after, and she spoke about how she lives very close to the border, within 20 miles, and every day she makes sure, she works in a little community center.
Like a cross or Red Cross?
It's like similar to a Red Cross, and that she helps administer humanitarian aid. She helps people who are crossing the desert to give them water and food and shade and help to live, because as we all know, we all have the right to life. But she has told us stories about how she would be driving, she lives within 20 miles of the border, so she was just driving home one day, and on the side of the road she found a man who he collapsed and he was dehydrated, and he was dying, and he ended up passing away. But she sat there with him on the side of the road, holding him in her arms, telling him it's going to be okay. And she said that she felt very maternal. She felt almost an obligation to this man to be there for him in these last moments. And there's just no way I can describe how it felt hearing this coming from her. This man she'd never known just tried to get out of his situation. He risked his life to try for something better, and he did not make it. There's another story about how she heard a knock on her door one day. There was a man who said, "Help me, my wife is out in the desert." She couldn't make it because many people don't have shoes, your footwear doesn't last, you get blisters, and it's very hard, and she collapsed. And so she called the authorities, and they went out searching for her, and she ended up passing away. So there's just many stories of death and despair, and it's extremely heartbreaking hearing these stories, especially when they show pictures. And I'm really upset that we don't have a map to show, but they showed a picture of southwestern Arizona, where I don't believe there is a border wall, just because it is such a harsh portion of desert. So there's around, it showed the past 15 years a dot for every body that they found in the desert. And it was around 5,000 dots for the past 15 years, and that was just the bodies that they found in the desert. We hear many stories of people being lost in the desert and never found. So I just think it's important to tell these stories of people who are there at the border experiencing these life or death situations, because this wasn't just happening 100 years ago. This is happening today. People are dying in search of a better life. It's very upsetting, but
kind of to reiterate what he said, and that's only the bodies that you do find. Kind of off the side note, just to kind of explain the harsh situation. My mom's cousin, he was trying to come over here through the desert, and when they found him, it was half decomposed. There was already birds picking at him, animals just taking off, his body. So unfortunately, he didn't make it. And it's a lot of people who don't get found. They drown in the river. There's bodies found in the I don't know what the river's called, but very large, vast river. Bodies that just get eaten up by the animals and just decompose, and you never find them. There's families or people that come across promising their families, "I'll come back, I'll find something for you guys," and you never hear back from them anymore.
And
so,
on a lighter note, to aid in this situation, because this is a humanitarian issue. People are fleeing areas in search of a better life because that is their only option. They will die if they stay where they are. For many, there's nothing else to it other than that. So to combat this issue, the woman who works at this Red Cross type of community center, she helps maintain water storage units and helps try to gain financing for these types of resources all throughout the desert that are just, you see a giant red flag or blue flag in the middle of a desert, that's where you go to find a canteen or a giant container to get any sort of water. So there's people who are trying to do these, but then you go out and there's also people who are trying to take these down, because we have people in this country who do believe that this is a problem that either does not need to be addressed or needs to be addressed in a manner of a wall. So it's just amazing seeing that there are people willing to put a metal container of water that might even evaporate in a couple of weeks, and they're willing to spend their days maintaining this water system, just in hopes that somebody might see it, just to get a drink of water.
There was just a great sense of community with all these people from all over the country that we didn't even know each other, but we were all in it together. People went to the other side, and we were having rallies on both sides. There was this like puppet show to describe the experiences that people had when they were crossing over. There's a big emphasis on saying why people cross over. I think a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of violence and not a lot of opportunity in Latin American countries, which also is a larger issue, is that because of U.S. imperialism, but a lot of people don't understand these complex issues. They don't see these people crossing over as human beings. They see them as illegals or criminals, and I think that's just a word that they use to other, people that cross over, that come here, and then they try to make a better life for themselves, and then they get arrested just because they crossed over, and that's probably the only crime they committed. Sorry, I'm like getting emotional again thinking of the detention center. There was just, and then hearing the stories from the men in the sanctuary. There was a man who was like, he was talking to me and saying, like, you guys are the future. You guys are going to help people like me. And I think that was after that we made kind of like this pact, like we can't let their stories die. We have to do something. We have to go and share it with everyone. One guy was like, I only see my family like once a month. They come here and visit me because I can't leave here, or else I'll get arrested. I couldn't imagine that, because like in a sense they were not being deported, but they were still kind of confined because they weren't allowed the freedom to see their families even. We also went to, I forgot the name of the place where all these murals are, but it was like a center for activism in Phoenix.
Yep.
Or was it?
Called Puente.
Puente. Yeah, it was in Phoenix though, right?
Phoenix.
Yeah, okay. See, it was too long ago. I can't remember all the town names. But it was pretty amazing. They had these, a lot of activism, all these beautiful murals outside. There were little committee meetings right there. Like what is our next action? Like there were a lot of people. Vigil?
Yeah, they were at the workshops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the workshops were pretty cool too. But yeah, they were like organized and they were being proactive. A lot of nervousness over the upcoming election at the time. But people were not showing fear, just like we're going to have a lot of work cut out for us if you know who wins. But it was really amazing. There was a lot of sense of community and teamwork and pride in what they're doing. So that was my experience there in Arizona.
Alright, hi, my name's Michelle. I'm a first year political science major, and I remember beginning of the semester and Walsh was like, we're going to the border trip. I didn't even know anything else about the trip. I just told him I'm going to go on the trip. What does it take to get on the trip? And on the first day of the trip, we didn't know each other. I mean, Andrea and I went to Denny's at like 2, 3 in the morning. And then when we got to Arizona, we really didn't know anything what we were doing. But like, I remember the sanctuary, the guys there that we had breakfast with, where they told us these stories they had. After they told us the stories, we asked to see the sanctuary, and like the guys got so excited to show them like where they sleep and what they do for fun. And this one guy, I don't remember which one of the 3 was, he one of our other peers asked if they had a Bible, and he like ran down the hallway and he brought back a Bible, and he was just so happy to like give Bible verses to us and everything. And then after that we went to Puente, like Andrea talked about, for a little while. That was really amazing to see like activism at work for the vigil. And then we went to the vigil after that. Yes. right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. After that, we went to the vigil, and we ended up just listening to the stories people have to tell, and we all kind of came together more, like we were more closer after the sanctuary and everything. And I remember when we were chanting, I kind of felt a little bit fear from like when the police guards were outside saying, "Don't cross this line."
We were just like, "We're crossing the line," putting like 1 foot over. I'm sorry, I just wanted to say one thing real quick. I actually got to leave early, unfortunately, but please ask my peers anything, any questions you may have. Please, if you want to contact one of us, Dr. Walsh has our emails. And if you ever get the opportunity to do something like this, definitely take it. Even though it might not be within your comfort zone, go out there and be a part of something that's way bigger than yourself. It's amazing what happens when you do stuff like that. It really expands your mind, and you're that much more knowledgeable about the communities around you. So thank you, you guys. So I'll leave it out. Thanks. Yeah, see you later.
All right, and then after the second day, we went to the border march. And I remember the first time I saw the border, I was like, wow, this is like standing right in front of me. We hear about it on the news all the time, but we never see actual images. And it kind of like shocked me to see this big wall just right up in between neighborhoods. And then we, of course, we went to some different workshops, and people were just giving those workshops, telling us like information about this is what you can do. And the third day, it was only Andrea and I there because everyone else left early in the morning, and we went back to the border, and we just kind of watched like the puppet show they had going on, showing how the two sides of the border could come together and that we could fight the fight and have immigration reform kind of just try to slowly take steps to resolve it. And that's all I can say.
I just wanted to say real quickly, because I have to go soon myself before we end up finishing off. No matter what you do in your community, who you are, Donald Trump, no Donald Trump, American, Mexican, Syrian, we are all human, and whether you support a border or you don't support a border, there's a bigger problem that needs to be addressed, and it's how we talk to each other. It's how we communicate with one another, and how we use our words at the end of the day. And I think that's the biggest thing to take away from this is watch how we talk to each other. Thank you.
We were very fortunate that Rebecca and Aaron and Luna, their little girl, came along because we had this team, and Luna became kind of the mascot of the trip. And I remember one night after the vigil, it was late, it was like 10 o'clock, we didn't have any dinner, we were starving. I just remember sitting in a parking lot, and we all went our separate ways to find food. Some of us went to the grocery store, some of us, and I just have this, it was just a good memory. My other memory I wanted to share is at the border, the rallies were going on, and I couldn't find anybody, so I was kind of lost. This man came up to me, and he had this backpack, and he was sort of holding it down. He had this look on his face, this determined look on his face. He said, "Can you help me?" I said, "Okay, what's going on?" And he pulled up his backpack, and he started opening up, and I thought, "Oh my God, that's his backpack." He pulled it open, he reached in, volleyball. And he said, "We're going to play volleyball across the wall." He said, "But I need a team." So I just thought that was a beautiful example of how art can be used to break the barrier. And that's something that stayed with me. So
I kind of regret not being able to do that, because that in itself is just such a physical show of what the border wall itself, how simple it is.
So this is Father Roy. Sugla, who actually started the School of the Americas Watch after the assassination of the Jesuit priest in El Salvador and the housekeepers. So he pretty much started this movement to close the School of the Americas. And he's been arrested several times at Fort Benning because of this expression that this target that he has set up to close the School of the Americas, and what it does, what it has been doing, like training military personnel, Latin American military personnel that then returns to their countries and commit abuses of human rights. So, and the idea of bringing the visual to the border is to recognize what you all have talked about, to recognize that there are other elements of violence and poverty that people are fleeing from, trying to come to the U.S. to find a better life for their families and peers. So that we are responsible here in the North, in the U.S., for those policies being implemented over there. So this is pretty much what the School of the Americas Watch movement wants to do, is to raise awareness of the issues. And the idea of moving the mobilization to the border was to show that what is happening there. And I am very, very, very humbled by your experiences and you sharing those experiences here in the community, because it's something that you have to live to understand it better, and your testimonies are really important. Also, your recognition of coming from immigrant communities as well, you know, that's really important. And how you will do the change in the future is, I think it's important to do that. But I'm going to leave the floor open for questions. One more thing I'm going to say is that there will be an opportunity this year to do the trip again. I mean, we have to talk about it.
I'm going.
But
I was going to ask how many of you are going again this year?
yeah.
We're going.
So
Is it at the border again?
it will be again in Nogales, and the date has been set for November 10th to the 12th in Nogales in both sides again. So I'm excited that you want to do it again, and if you can get other friends to come, this is like a life-changing experience, as you can see. So a lot of people that have gone to Fort Benning, that was their first time to be, you know, in the movement and seeing something, and has marked. I've met people that have been doing this for 20 years, that they went to the first vigil when they were like 18 or 20, and that changed their life forever. So you are the next generations. Yeah.
Where do we get more info as the date gets closer?
The Denver Justice and Peace Committee is the local contact point. We'll be sending out information. Also, you can check out the SOAW.org. That's their SOAW Watch website.
The workshop was really like one of the most educating aspects of this trip,
You could
because
pick like a bunch of different topics.
Yeah,
There
you
was people on like the politics of immigration. There was some on like what efforts are being done to help people who cross the border, like what Ashton talking about, the lady who had like the kind of Red Cross like humanitarian aid thing in her town.
Jill
It was-
Stein had advocates from her campaign there doing a workshop on her campaign at the time, because it was just a month before the election, and where there you could just there were just dozens of workshops you could do over a course of hours. Yep, you could do a workshop with Puente, which was the activist community or activist.
Like how to start your own grassroots campaign
Yeah.
and stuff.
It was, you could focus your how you wanted to educate yourself on this topic, because it's such a, this is what we've talked about, is such a broad umbrella of things that go on, and these workshops allow you to really narrow your view on this and certain aspects. So that's probably, you gain a lot of different views from this, not just from going to the march and going to the sanctuaries, but the workshop itself is you're seeing doctors, professionals, you're seeing people with PhDs talk about these issues who have been doing this for 30 some odd years. So it's very educational. To give you a sense of how social this is, I got a ride to the airport, which is a 2-hour somewhat ride, about 2 hours from Nogales to Phoenix, from 3 women that I met at the march. That are
just like the people
DJPC.
There were people offering rides. There's a ride to Tucson. There's a ride to Phoenix.
We just jumped on a ride with Professor Rebecca from the some professor from the Lorena.
Yeah, and I believe that some of our DJPC members were one of the KU rights.
Harriet.
Yeah, so Harriet is a member of the Denver Justice and Peace Committee. And I mean, there is a cost to the trip, but we did a lot of solidarity work amongst each other, and you could find some funds here and there and at DU fund. So it's pretty much, I think, what the students ended up paying was their airfare, and because they looked for the cheapest one, that's why they ended up having to travel very, very early in the morning.
But you can also do marches in your community. You can also go to workshops in your community. There's things just like this all throughout the year.
Yeah, after this, I started getting updates from AFSC about vigils here. In Denver, I had no idea I lived right next to a detention center, and that was weird. And I went there and then learned more about what's going on in my own neighborhood that I had no idea was happening, which was really eye-opening. So you don't have to go all the way to the border. I think the point of our discussion is saying that this is an issue and that we can take actions here to fix those issues one step at a time.
And by the way, there's a big vigil this Monday night at the detention center, 6 o'clock at 30th and Peoria. Yeah, and anything else?
Thank you all for sharing your experiences with us. I almost cried like 5 different times.
It was very.
Yeah, we cried 5 times.
Every time one of you said, I'm getting emotional, I was like, I know, me too. Stop.
We cried a lot too.
The most important part for us, I think, seeing it like at the vigil and at the march, and
Seeing that it affects real people.
not only seeing that it affects real people, but coming from like a political science background and like wanting to see how social activism really affects the community, and then look at what just has happened in the past few months with all of these marches, and then the women's march in general. A lot of people argue that it wasn't one cohesive message, but the most important part of that was it was one of the biggest shows of numbers of people in our society. And if we can continue to do things like this and continue to show up in our own communities, in our own backyards, people didn't have to travel to Washington, D.C. to march for women. They just went, walked down the street and did it in their own backyard. So that's, I think, the most important thing is that we are greater in numbers.
There's a couple of students who couldn't be here tonight who were part of the trip, and there was this guy, Jeff, who brought a video camera, and we could never find him. He was always off interviewing people, and every time we got in the van, where's Jeff? But he put together these beautiful interviews that he's hoping one day to edit into a short film. And then Paula, who couldn't be here either, she was the energy of the group. If she were here right now, her energy would just fill the space.
She came on last minute too.
Yeah, she came on last minute,
But she would there were tons of chants like in Spanish English, and she doesn't know Spanish.
We don't know.
But she was right there screaming them. She was like, yeah.
She kept leaning over to Andrea and saying, "What are they saying? What are they saying?"
What does "you no más" mean? We had a good time.
And then I remember you and Frida were running back and forth at the vigil from like one side where they were chanting
because
together. I couldn't
one side
hear.
was quieter than the other, so we'd like run over and I'd be like, what are they saying? And I'd shout it over there, so then the other side that couldn't hear knows what was going on.
And shouted at us.
Yeah, and then the police over there were pretty, that was scary because they were like, get off the sidewalk! And we were like, okay.
interesting also hearing about like education. We didn't know that we live right by detention centers ourselves. We don't know what I'm from Texas.
But
I
your
didn't know the
banks fund
extent
them,
of.
for
Yeah.
one thing.
I didn't know the
Paid off
extent of.
my Wells Fargo credit card so I could get rid of Wells Fargo.
Yeah, my family, we're banking with Wells Fargo as of this year. We're not, and because of rights movements like Dakota Pipeline that really we saw the numbers, we saw people educating others about what was going into this. We found out that we ourselves were perpetuating this, and we wanted to help in our own way, which was simply signing a piece of paper.
And now a word from Andrea.
Okay, so it's called Do They Know? And it is inspired because of the detention center that we saw. Do they know that we're human when they see us fleeing from war, and instead of giving refuge, they build their huge empty walls? Do they know that we cry when they lock us all up for fighting to stay with our families and crossing borders made up? Do they know that we get sick, that we need doctors too, when they leave us rotting in these cells and after they beat us black and blue? Do they know that we suffer, and we've known this all our lives, and all that keeps us going are our parents, kids, husbands, and wives? Do they know that we're angry, and when the people shout in the street, they're shouting for us, for justice, and all night they'll stay on their feet? Do they know anything about us, that we're not welcome in our home, and our new lives and kids were born here, and only the door have we been shown? Do they know that we're human, our lives, our stories are true, full of adventure and happiness and sadness, that we're not seen as humans too?
Solo le pido a Dios que el dolor no me sea indiferente, que la reseca muerte no me encuentre vacío y solo sin haber hecho lo suficiente.